Okay, so I finally had to get a new piece of white paper because my other one was pretty well filled and dirty, so got myself a new piece of paper. Make sure, again, as always, guys, that you're always putting that piece of paper on top of your drawing so you're protecting it from your drawing arm, so you're not smudging all of that hard work that you put on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start the forehead, and I'm going to kind of zoom into this. So when I work on the forehead, you got to take consideration, and again, a lot of people have misconceptions about what our forehead is actually like. A lot of people just think it's straight across. The middle part here of your forehead is going to be the part that's sort of sticking out the most, and it can be kind of flat. It's not perfectly round, but it's about right here when you get right above the midpoint of your eyebrows where your forehead starts to wrap around and go back. So it's just going back and starting to create that shape of your head, that round shape. So you've got that. You also have your temples that are right here too, so you'll see some value changes happening about right here. So I like to just, you want to make yourself familiar with the form, because those particular areas where you know that the form is changing, that's where you want to be looking for those specific shapes that the values are making or the shadows are making on your forehead. In addition to that, you want to take into consideration how the hair is affecting even your forehead too. So like in my situation, I have just sort of this section of hair that's kind of falling on top of my forehead. So it's most likely creating a shadow, cast shadow on top of my forehead. So, and even too over here on the other side. So those are all things you want to take into consideration. So I'm just going to kind of, again, work on just one half. You want to make sure that your guidelines or any lines that you have that are still there are erased. And then I'm going to go ahead and start with my 4H pencil. And I'm going to start shading it now. Initially, when I was kind of shading this half of my face, I didn't have my hair down, so my hair was up in a ponytail, I believe, which it is on most days. So I didn't see a lot of these shadows before, so I need to plug those in. So even though I'm kind of working on my forehead, I am going to probably continue to work on this section down here, because now I can see how my hair is affecting these shapes. So I'm just starting to map this stuff out. And again, I can see a shape right here from where my head is, or my forehead is starting to come back. Look at this. So I'm just lightly laying down some 4H just to get it mapped out. And then I already kind of started right here in the top of my nose with some of my forehead, so I'm just going to kind of continue that. And in general, my forehead on this side of my face is in shadow. So it looks like I'm probably going to have a layer of 4H over this whole side. So once I sort of exhaust my 4H here. Then I'm going to go ahead and move on to my 3B and lay that down wherever I need it. And again, this is kind of leading me to go back and kind of work on the side of the face underneath there too. So making some corrections and alterations, and that's completely normal. Definitely make sure, guys, that your hair is the way it needs to be. Because that will affect the forehead. Okay, so I have a good bit, done on this half of my forehead. So I didn't end up going in with my 6B. I didn't feel like I needed it, but who knows? I might decide otherwise when I go back through. So what I'm going to do now is work on the ear. So the ear is something that I think it's very similar to like the nose in the sense that, the only contours that you really have to work with are here at the bottom of the nose. Everything else to really get that shape and form is all about the shading. So it's the same thing with the ear. So the first thing I'm going to do with the ear, again, is to just erase over my lines so that they're lighter. So I don't want my ears to look like they're outlined. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. And then I'm going to start kind of shading the, I guess the top or the top part and the outside part of my ear first. And the reason why I like to start there is because, again, this is one of those defined edges that I can really look at and see very well. So I'm going to start that first. And the way that I'm going to start carving that out is I'm going to start with my 4H pencil. I'm going to actually start right here on the inside of the ear. So I want to try to pop this edge out. So I'm going to work on the inside of it, and hopefully as I work on the inside, this whole section will start to pop out and I'll see that better. I'll kind of zoom in here. Might have to lose. Let's see here. Maybe even one more. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to kind of work on the inside here. So I'm just working on this little shape that I see there. And I'm just going to start with my 4H and work from there. So now I'm going to go in and add my 3B wherever I think that it needs to get darker. Just paying attention to the shapes that I see it make. And so this is helping me just see that, I don't even know what you call it, that top part of my ear better. And then I'm just going to go ahead and then again work on the next section or next sort of dark shape that I see, and then hopefully I'll carve out another part too. So I've got this shape right in here that's pretty dark, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that in with some 4H. You want to get really good at form, just draw noses and ears. You'll get really good at shading and depicting your form. So far, all I've used right now is just my 4H and 3B pencil. So again, all I'm doing is just finding those dark shapes within my ear, and I'm just trying to carve them out. And that's in turn popping other things out, making it easier for me to see it. So now that I have my two darkest shapes basically kind of filled in, and again, all I used with a 4H and a 3B pencil, now I'm going to start dealing with some of these other parts. Kind of thin up some stuff. Need to fix my shape here a little bit. There. Now this ear of mine's pretty well in shadow just because of my hair kind of tucked behind it and falling on top of it. Except for just a little part. And this is where I might find where I need to put my 6B. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work one section at a time. Oh, that's not what I wanted. This may or may not be the time you guys want to plug in your earrings if you've got earrings in. Okay, so there is my ear. I think I still have some adjustments I need to make. Okay, so there's the ear. Next thing will be the neck. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the neck, and then you guys work on a little bit of everything, just to kind of bring things together. I'm going to zoom out here so we can see most of this. Now, our neck is like a roof over our face is like a roof over our neck. So as a result of that, a lot of times you will see a cast shadow coming off of your jawline and chin onto your neck. Some of the misconceptions a lot of people have with the neck has to do with just basically the form of it. You know, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of like kind of this flare where it's attaching to the bottom of your jawline, and then again it's going to happen over here too. Your neck isn't as straight as a lot of people think, or as tall as a lot of people would think. So those are just some common mistakes. Now, to remember, and what I would do is just feel your neck, and again I think that's the best way to kind of familiarize yourself with the form. Is here in the middle of your neck is where it sort of sticks out the most, and then of course if you put your hand right on top of that area right here in the middle, follow it down, you're going to connect to your collarbone, okay? And that's another part that sort of stands out. So put your hands just right here in the middle, right there, follow it down, and then you should find your collarbone right here. So those are parts, again, where there's some big major form changes, and so those are the areas that I sort of look at specifically to see what's going on in them, okay? So first thing you want to do is, again, erase over any guidelines or lines that you might have. Again, I'm only going to be working on half of this, and I do have quite a bit of hair covering the edge of my neck, so I'm not going to see my actual edge that well. And so what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to look for, I don't know, is that the jugular? Is that what you call that? I don't know. Okay. But anyways, I'm going to look for that. I think it's called the jugular. I need to go back to biology class. But I'm going to look for that, and I can see very clearly my light's hitting this side of my neck, and then over here is much darker. So I'm going to go ahead and start by just putting a layer 4H over this whole side, because this is my dark side. So I'm going to start with my 4H. And I might lose my jawline a little bit here, and that's okay. I'll bring that back. Oh, that would help. There you go. Better? I always forget to unfreeze it. Alright, so I'm going to start with just putting a layer 4H over all of this, because again, this is my dark side of my neck. And again, if your light's coming from one side, you should see the same thing. One side darker than the other, and you'll see that change happen right here, sort of in the middle, where what I think is called your jugular. If I'm wrong, I am so sorry. I'm just going to see here. And I've got a different shirt on, of course. I do have some light kind of hitting here in my collarbone, so I'm going to work around that. And sometimes, too, you will see that kind of V shape down here, so I can kind of see that. So I'm going to draw that in. And again, all I'm doing is just mapping out with my 4H right now. Just looking at the shapes that these values are making. Once I've identified those shapes and I've kind of drawn that stuff in, I can kind of fill this stuff in a little bit more. And then again, once I've exhausted, you know, my 4H, it's not doing anything for me anymore, I'm going to switch to my 3B and start plugging that in. And again, note, you know, keep an eye out for those areas that you know that the form is changing. That's where you're going to see shapes form. You got things like your hair, if your hair is long enough, and your jawline, that's going to create some cast shadows even over your neck. And at some point, hopefully you start to see it start to look round. And because I didn't get my hair done over here, I need to kind of plug that in. And so what we're going to do for the rest of the bell is just work on these three areas: forehead, ear, and neck. And I continue to try to work on this neck area. What's nice about the neck too is that this is when you really start to see your face just kind of pop out a bit. I even use the neck too to just kind of help refine the jawline too. Alright, so guys, we have about 5 minutes left, so you may start cleaning up. Hopefully you got a good start to this stuff. We will continue tomorrow.